How's it going, y'all?
And welcome back to B-Bros.
If you look at the content on our channel, you won't see many DC videos and no DC animated universe videos. However, we have always mentioned our appreciation towards them. Now, this week, we have a break between the MCU series and we thought we should spend some time on talking about the DCAU villains, specifically Batman's villains.
There is a great change in the appearances of the Batman villains after 1992 Batman the Animated Series to 1997 The New Batman Adventures.
Today on B-Bros, we will have a deep dive into these changes and do our best to explain why.
First of all, we have to start with the question, what is the DC Animated Universe?
If you're not familiar with the term, your first guess might be all the animated series that features DC characters. However, the DCAU is a much more specific term that is a universe just like the MCU. The DCAU kickstarted with 1992 Batman the Animated Series and continued with the New Batman Adventures and finally Batman Beyond. We also have Superman the Animated Series and two Justice League series, the Justice League and the Justice League Unlimited. There are two additional series called the Static Shock and the Zeta Project. The DCU's main content are its series, but there are also 6 movies and many comics and more to support the franchise. All the other animated DC content are either in a different universe or are single projects that are not a continuation of another universe. We will take a look at all the canon content inside the DCAU in our future videos, but this is enough for now.
This was a necessary tangent before discussing the villains. Now let's move on to our main topic. What happened to Batman villains after the Batman Animated Series?
Batman the Animated Series introduced us into one of the most complex and well-written Batman stories with the most famous villains. These villains' appearances have had a dramatic change in BTAS's sequel, The New Batman Adventures. There are real-life reasons that caused the change which we can explain inside the animated universe.
Batman's villains who appeared constantly in these series are the Joker, Harley Quinn, Two-Face, Clayface, Bane, Baby Doll, Penguin, Poison Ivy, Catwoman, Scarecrow, Riddler, Mr. Freeze, Killer Croc, and last but not the least, the Mad Hatter.
The animation style between BTAS and the TNBA has changed to make the production easier. For BTAS, every single shot was drawn, and as technology improved by the time of TNBA, it was easier to animate.
This was not the only reason though. As we have mentioned, Superman the Animated Series was also running alongside TNBA, and TNBA decided to adapt to the animation style of Superman.
TNBA and STAS were the first TV shows in the DCAU that crossed over with each other, and they wanted to make sure they were consistent with the animation. The style of Superman was easier, so they chose to go with that.
The animation style change explains some of the changes in the villains.
Characters like Harley Quinn and Clayface did not go through significant change. The Baby Doll seems to change her hairstyle, the Joker's eyes color change, which is extremely common in the DCAU, Bane's costume is different, and Two-Face seems to be working out.
However, the remaining villains' changes cannot be explained this simply, as the New Batman Adventures did not have the slightest explanation in the series.
Before we talk about why these characters changed inside the animated universe, we have to mention these shows were aired over 20 years ago and times have changed since then. The idea of continuity was not a big deal like it is today. We know Marvel does everything so perfectly that you expect that from every single crossover and continuation, but it was not the case back then.
Even if we were not alive, we did our research and we can say the DCAU is one of the first and well-planned universes. And even though you might say the changes are due to bad writing or drawing and sloppiness, we hope we can give you a new perspective.
Let's start with Catwoman.
Catwoman has one of the most dramatic changes. Her hair color and length, skin tone, and even body size has changed. The comics given us an understanding as to why she changed her appearance. Catwoman becomes a criminal at the end of the BTAS, with her identity revealed to the public.
To stay under the radar and not be recognized in public, she changes her hair color to black and shortens it. The color of her costume changes to have a new alias. Also, her skin color in the comics is in her original tone, which makes us think she wears makeup on TNBA.
We must say this is the worst animation change amongst this list. We think strongly about this as we do not enjoy Catwoman not having a redemption story.
Killer Croc is modernized between the series. In BTAS, his skin is grey, whereas in TNBA, he is dark green. The color change represents him being less human and more crocodile. We believe his mutation evolved through many years and continue to evolve.
Mad Hatter goes through a change that is hard to explain. His hair whitens and his size shrinks, even though only a small number of years passed between the two series. There is no comic book explanation, so we had to think on our own to come up with something.
Mad Hatter uses a neurological device to control other people's minds. We think this device makes him put too much pressure on his brain and body, which accelerates his growing process. When people get older, they do get white hair and shrink. For Mad Hatter, he might be going through an extreme version of this process.
Mr. Freeze is the only character that has an explained appearance change. The reason why they had to explain is due to his storyline. In the movie Sub-Zero, which is canon, Mr. Freeze has a redemption story. The only reason why he is a villain in the first place is due to his wife's illness, and she is saved in Sub-Zero.
We see Mr. Freeze start a life in the cold, happy as his wife is back on her feet. When they brought Freeze back for the new show, they had to explain why he's back. Their explanation is that his body could not work under cold conditions and he had to cut it off and live with a robot body and his real head. We think this is an extreme version of Frozen Bites.
In Batman the Animated Series, Penguin's look was inspired by the 1992 movie Batman Returns. After BTAS had their reputation, they decided to create their own version. Inside the universe, we assume his appearance changed after various surgeries. He gets 2 additional fingers in both hands. He loses a lot of weight, and he probably got a nose job.
Why would Penguin do this?
Simple. He wanted to be a respected member of the community. In BTAS, Penguin has a genuine effort to become a member of the decent society in Gotham. However, due to his past and his appearance, people do not accept him.
In TNBA though, he gets clean and runs many businesses and even runs for mayor in the comics. His physical change gives him the respect he asked for.
Poison Ivy's skin color change is the only change, and we could explain it as only makeup to look more like a plant, but it's not that simple.
There are 2 theories, and we should start with the more plausible one. As Poison Ivy spends more time with plants and mutates them, she might have gone through a mutation of her own. She uses chemicals and plants in her daily experiments, and this might have caused her to become a more plant-like creature. The second theory is Poison Ivy being an actual plant. In BTAS series episode House and Garden, Pamela Isley, aka Poison Ivy, made plant clones that look like humans.
The problem with them was that the lifespan, which is way too short. There is a possibility that she overcome the lifespan problem and created clones of her own. You might be asking why would she need clones? At the end of BTAS, it seemed like Pamela left the life of crime and moved on with her life.
However, she returns like nothing happened in TNBA. We believe she might have created the clones for her vision to continue and also keep Harley company. They bonded well during BTAS and she might not have wanted to leave Harley alone.
The Riddler's physical appearance changes with his costume, hair shape, and he looks like he lost a lot of weight. His attitude also changes and becomes goofy rather than sarcastic and egotistical. This might remind you of Jim Carrey's Riddler in Batman Forever.
Unfortunately, the TNBA creators adapted their Riddler with a more pop culture version and destroyed the story of the character in our opinion. There must be some sort of allure in adapting a character from a movie that failed dramatically.
Scarecrow's change is by far the most dramatic and highly discussed appearance change on this list. In BTAS, Dr. Crane is a weird professor that becomes the Scarecrow due to his removal from the university as he was running fear experiments with his students. In TNBA, he is a massive horror movie character. This can be simply explained by a costume change. He wanted to strike fear with his appearance, so designed new costume accordingly.
In one of the comics, Crane resembles himself in BTAS by the way of size but has a new face. This is explained by the writers that he had a lab accident that burned his face, and he designed a new costume to make him look scarier. But apparently the writers do not talk to each other before talking about the characters, because they also said he was sentenced to a death penalty but survived. His experience caused him trauma that made him believe he's a ghost, which caused his costume change. We suppose the two ideas do not contradict.
One of the greatest but far-fetched theory is made by the Watchtower database, the best DCAU content creator on YouTube. In Watchtower database's online comic series, The Legacies of the DCAU, they have an explanation, but this is not considered canon of course, because it is a fan comic. In the comic, they say that the god of Underworld and presumably father of Wonder Woman, Hades, tricked him into suicide. Hades released his spirit and gave him a new body.
We know it's really crazy and a little dark for the DCAU. Our theory for Scarecrow is that he enhanced his fear toxin and everyone sees him that way. We appreciate the DCAU a lot, even with their flaws. It is not an easy universe to follow with their timeline and continuity, so we will explain the DCAU with the best of our abilities.
This is all from us this week. We hope you enjoyed our explanations and theories.
You can add your reasoning behind the appearance changes of villains in the DCAU down in the comment section.
Thank you for watching.
For now,
B-Bros out.